Something important has just been clarified about XRP. A question that has followed digital assets for years is now being answered directly, and what was confirmed reinforces everything many have been watching closely. The question is simple, but powerful. Can a digital asset be taken back after it has been sent? Because the answer to that question determines who truly holds control, the system or the individual. This is where XRP stands apart. David Schwartz, one of the original architects of the XRP Ledger, addressed this directly, and his statement removed any remaining uncertainty about how XRP truly works. His clarification was precise. Assets can only be clawed back by their issuer, but XRP has no issuer, and that single distinction changes everything about its position in the digital asset system. This confirms a foundational principle that has been built into XRP from the very beginning. Once XRP is sent and confirmed by the network, it cannot be reversed, frozen, or taken back by any central authority. This is very different from traditional finance. Banks can reverse transactions, institutions can freeze accounts, but blockchain assets were designed to operate under a completely different set of rules. This is exactly why the concept of clawback has become such an important topic, because clawback represents control, and control determines whether an asset is truly decentralized or still dependent on centralized authority. In simple terms, clawback means the ability to reclaim an asset after it has already been sent. In traditional systems, this happens regularly. Transactions can be reversed when institutions intervene. But blockchain changes this structure entirely. Once a transaction is validated and added to the ledger, it becomes permanent. There is no central switch that can undo what the network has confirmed. However, not all digital assets operate the same way. Some tokens are created by issuers who retain special permissions, and those permissions can include the ability to freeze or reclaim those tokens. This is where the distinction becomes critical, because clawback is not a universal feature. It only exists when a token was designed with an issuer who maintains administrative authority. And this is exactly why XRP is different. The XRP Ledger launched in 2012 with its full supply already created. No additional XRP can ever be issued, minted, or controlled by a central entity. This means XRP is not dependent on an issuer. It exists as a native asset within the ledger itself, and that structural design removes the mechanism required for clawback to even exist. This is what many have pointed to for years. XRP was built to operate independently of centralized override, and now that technical reality is being clearly understood by more people. By contrast, native blockchain assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum's native ETH, and XRP do not contain issuer-level clawback authority within their core protocol. There is no built-in administrative override waiting in the background. That distinction matters more than most people realize, because when an asset has no issuer, there is no central switch that can be pulled later, and that changes the entire risk profile of the asset. XRP's structure places it in the same category of finality as Bitcoin: fixed supply, no inflation through mining, no issuer with revocation power. That foundation has been in place since 2012. But XRP also adds something else: settlement in seconds, low transaction costs, and a decentralized validator network confirming transactions without institutional gatekeepers. This combination is what makes it structurally unique. Fixed supply from Genesis, no entity that can mint more, no authority that can reverse what the ledger validates. And this is where clarity becomes powerful, because the clawback feature that exists for certain issued tokens on the XRP ledger was built for compliance use cases, not for XRP itself. That separation is deliberate. Issued tokens can include administrative permissions. XRP cannot. It is native to the ledger and operates beyond issuer control. For an XRP holder, that creates very specific advantages. Once a transaction is validated, it is final. No third party can reverse it later. Ownership is determined by private keys, not by institutional approval. Control equals possession, and that principle has remained unchanged since the ledger launched. There is also no issuer risk. No company can arbitrarily confiscate holdings. No administrative freeze button exists at the protocol level. The monetary policy is predictable. The supply is permanently capped. What exists today is what will ever exist. That certainty removes inflation uncertainty. And for institutions seeking settlement certainty, this becomes critical. Finality reduces counterparty risk. It removes the ambiguity common in systems where reversals remain possible. When you step back, the clawback discussion reveals something deeper. It exposes how digital assets are designed and who ultimately holds authority within that design. Clawback requires an issuer. XRP has no issuer. Therefore, it cannot be clawed back. This is not speculation. It is embedded directly in the protocol architecture. The XRP Ledger allows flexibility for issued tokens to meet compliance needs. But XRP itself stands apart, fixed in supply, native to the ledger, and independent of centralized override. For holders, that means certainty. Once sent, it is final. Once owned, it cannot be seized through issuer authority. In a financial world where freezes and reversals are common, that principle becomes powerful. True ownership rests with the holder, and in that principle lies its strength.